Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the You Can Call Me Goddess podcast. And the topic that we're going to be talking about today is something that I've experienced multiple times, and I've seen it in clients, in friends, in family, in a lot of people. And that is our ability to convince ourselves or basically lie to ourselves that something is the truth when something else is actually going on. And to start off this example, I am going to give you an example of where this happened to me. So, if you followed me for a little while or you know a little bit about my story, then you know that I competed in a bodybuilding competition. So this is already a couple of years back. I was struggling with my body image and I decided to compete in a bodybuilding competition. Well, actually, it kind of like the universe presented it to me. My friend was dating a bodybuilder and they came up with this idea to write a thesis about bringing someone to the top. And the idea was born that I would be someone that we would transform into a bikini fitness model because I was already into fitness. I was struggling to get the results that I desired. So we went ahead and we did this bodybuilding competition. Because there was no expectation and because I kind of just wanted to see where it was going to end up, I ended up doing very well and I got extremely ripped and followed a very extreme diet and workout program and really got a body that I never thought I was able to achieve. Not saying that it was a healthy body, but I was able to get my fat percentage to 9%. I was totally ripped. And it took a lot of obsessive behaviors and dedication and like total investment in this project of becoming a bikini fitness model. So let's take you back even further. When I was younger, right up until my teens, and it probably leaked into this I'm pretty sure it leaked into this competition. I struggled with OCD, so obsessive compulsive disorder, which means that I can obsessively, compulsively do things because if I feel like if I don't do those things, that something bad is going to happen. That is like the gist of obsessive compulsive disorder. So I'm very good at, I still am, but back then it was like very controlling when I was younger. Like I couldn't let go of it. Now it's a little different. I still have the ability to bite into something and not let go. And I do think that comes partially from having that little bit of OCD in that area of life. So I really was able to, like, when I wanted something, when I go for something, I go for it. Like there is no, like, and I don't let go, but to the point that it becomes, an obsession in a negative way. So something that starts like prohibiting me in other areas of life. And that's when it really becomes a problem. So why I'm getting at this is because I see it so many times and I've been through it myself. Our ability to lie to ourselves, to convince ourselves that something is true when it's actually not. And what I'm getting at is in my fitness journey, when I was competing in this bodybuilding competition, I started obsessively training. I started following this extreme regime, this extreme diet. And I was convincing myself that this was going to be my new lifestyle, that this was something that was just part of my life now. And I was so much in the masculine energy, like really forcing myself through workouts, forcing myself through diets, to the point that this was the only thing that was going on in my life and nothing else mattered to me anymore. And yes, I did get amazing results. But even after the competition, there was this fear that I would lose the body that I had created, that I had achieved through this extreme dieting and through this extreme workout regime. So I remember the year after it was the year before. Well, around that time, I went on a holiday and I was so terrified of letting go of this body and this routine. And I would convince myself and everybody around me that this was just part of my new lifestyle. This is how I was going to live for the rest of my life, and that it made me happy and that it made me feel good. And nobody was going to talk me out of this belief. I was convincing myself that this was the truth, and people would just have to deal with it because this made me happy. This is the body that I wanted, and nobody could change that. And they just had to accept that. Looking back now at that moment in time, I was actually completely out of balance. And it's so extremely difficult to see when you're out of balance, when you're in it, and when you're so tunnel vision focused on one thing. Because we are so good at convincing ourselves that the opposite is true. And why I want to bring this to your attention is because when you're out of balance, people around you, the universe, your body is going to eventually catch up with you and is going to show you that there is an imbalance there. And you can try and convince yourself all you want that this makes you happy and this is your new lifestyle and people will just have to deal with it. But at a moment in time, it is going to shift. If this is not truly how you feel, you will start seeing that this is not actually what you want, and you're just brainwashing yourself into believing that this is what you want. So anybody who has been in the fitness space, anybody who has worked extremely hard in business, in any area of life, for example, has had this, even relationships, like let's talk about it. Like if you're in a relationship that you know that you're actually deep down unhappy with, you will go to lengths to convince yourself that you are happy in that situation. And what I'm trying to get at here, when that is going on and you know deep down in your core somewhere that this isn't actually what makes you happy and this is actually an action that you're taking from a lack or out of balance mindset, that is when it's time to dive deep and figure out where that imbalance is coming from. So, because it's going to catch up with you. So I wanted to discuss this because I've seen it before, right? Where we're so good at telling ourselves, no, but this is just, you're going to have to deal with it. This is my new life. Like, you're just going to have to accept me for who I am. And you know what the funny thing is? Just saying that out loud right now, you start realizing that this is something that you're not fully accepting who you are at your core. So you're trying every single thing to be someone else, right? To be something else, to exude control over an external thing in your life. And that is what I was trying to do in my bodybuilding competitions, because there was like this fear and this feeling of lack of trust, lack of confidence in the path that I was taking in life, in the decisions that I was taking in my life. And that's the same thing when it came to other areas where I had OCD, where I would obsessively do things because it made me feel like I had some form of control over that situation, right? That I could be confident that that is something that I can control. That is something that I do, that I am consistent in, that I know is going to happen because I will execute it. And this all comes from a lack of confidence and a lack of trust in an area of life because you think you don't have control, when in actual fact, you do have control. So what you end up doing is you start like forcing control and action over something external instead of healing the internal imbalance that is causing you to want to control that external thing. So if you look at me when I was bodybuilding, and that's a very easy example to give because it was like I was manipulating my diet, my training, and my body to look a certain way because then I knew I had control over something. Then I knew that would give me value, right? That external thing was giving me value. And so what ended up happening, if you know my story, the second time round, I wanted to compete again, but my body wouldn't let go of the weight, even though I was doing everything right. But at the same time, there was this feeling inside me that it shouldn't be this difficult. So when I was lying to myself, telling myself, yeah, I can live this lifestyle and this lifestyle makes me happy, I was actually lying to myself to the point that I couldn't handle it anymore, right? To the point where I was like, I'm actually not happy. This is not making me happy. So let me see how I can change this up. So that's when I started like diving deeper into other methods of doing what I wanted, but I was losing control. I wasn't getting the results that I desired. Why? Because my body was trying to communicate to me that there was a deeper imbalance that I needed to work through. There was a deeper imbalance. There was something that I hadn't healed within myself. And a lot of it came from me not trusting myself, not trusting my path in life, not seeing my worth and my value, right? And I thought achieving something like this, I had that control over that. That would give me value. That would give me worth. That would give me security that I was walking the right path, right? Because I could control that path. But the funny thing is, the more you try to control something, the more you lose that control. The more you actually lose that control over that situation. The more you trust, the more you lean into the feminine energy, the more you actually start to control the situation because you trust that you have control over the situation. I know it's a little bit like confusing when you think of it like that, because when you think about it, like I like to use this example because we can all identify with it. So I don't know if you've heard me talk about the law of opposing forces before, but that's basically like the more you want something, the more you're going to get the opposite, right? So if you want something too much, you're actually going to push it away. You're going to actually push it away. That's why in the first competition, there was no end goal. It was sort of like an experiment to see what my body could do. The second competition, I needed to get a better physique. So I put a lot of pressure on it. And then what ended up happening, I didn't get a better physique, even though I was doing everything right. Think about it in form of a relationship. You heard this saying so many, if I had a quarter for every time someone told me when I was dating that you will get the boyfriend or you will get a relationship the moment you don't want one anymore, that I would be rich, right? Like, I'm sure you've all heard that. And that is true because it's the law of opposing forces. And it happened to me the moment I let go of the outcome, the moment I let go of desiring what I wanted, the more it came to me, right? Because it didn't matter anymore. I neutralized the desire, the want for it. So that is where you basically have control over something by, stopping to try, can I say this sentence correctly? By you not trying to control the situation anymore. When you stop trying to control the situation, the more you actually control the situation. And what we do by lying to ourselves that we enjoy or like or are happy with something, we kind of force ourselves in an uncomfortable situation that we don't desire, and we try and convince ourselves that we like it until we get to a breaking point where we realize we actually don't like it, right? So when it comes to business and you're like trying to get more clients, trying to get more members, trying to earn more money, and you're constantly, all you're focusing on is work, and you're posting and you're promoting and you're doing this and you're doing that, and you're convincing yourself, yeah, but this just comes naturally to me. It's easy. It's just part of the job, right? And my creativity is just flowing. Like, I can smell that energy of you're lying to yourself. And the thing is, you're very convincing. We are so good at convincing ourselves that something is true. We are really, really good at blindsiding ourselves, at making ourselves believe that something is true when it's actually not. And that is why we need reflections. That is why we need the universe to show us when something is out of balance, because we are so good at pushing those emotions down until they bubble up to the surface somewhere and we have to deal with it, right? So I can smell that energy of you convincing yourself, because I've been through it, and it's so not worth it. It's so not worth it, because what we end up doing is we end up putting pressure on something, and putting that pressure on it is actually going to push it away instead of draw it to you. Like, when you think of desperate energy, needy, desperate energy, does that sound attractive to you? No, it's not. I'm sure you can recognize Either I've had both scenarios where I really wanted to date a guy, right? And I was so into him and I was like thinking that I wasn't after him in my actions, but my energy was like after this one guy, right? It was after that guy. And so the guy started taking steps back more and more and more. And I didn't understand why, because I was like, but I'm not doing anything. I'm not texting him. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. But we feel energy. So the guy that I was dating or was talking to at the time could feel my desperate energy wanting him, and that pushes people away. I've had it the other way around where a guy was after me and wanted me so badly, and I felt that energy and I got the ick. I was like, get away from me, because nobody likes desperate energy. And so when you're doing this in any area of life, even your body, even the universe feels this energy. So lying to yourself and convincing yourself that something is true when it's actually not isn't going to get you where you want to be. And this is just something that came to my attention today. I was walking and I was thinking about it, and I actually recently had a conversation with someone about it, and I was like, oh my God, I know this. And I've seen it with friends. I've seen it with other people where they tell themselves that something is true. Like, yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm actually doing really, really good. But then I can feel in their energy that it's off. No, but this comes to me naturally. It's not a lot of work. Someone in the fitness space that I spoke to, and she's like, yeah, it's just my lifestyle. I love, working out 2 hours a day. It's like, it makes me happy. It's part of my lifestyle. It's just part of my life now to weigh every single bite of food that I eat. And the thing is, I'm out of that mentality. So I can look back at when I used to do that and think, girl, you were lying to yourself so hardcore. You were lying to yourself so hardcore back then that this was not an effort. It wasn't like having any effect on your life. It was easy to do, and this was just now part of your lifestyle. When you're telling yourself that, and you know deep down that you're just trying to convince yourself of something that isn't true. And the beauty is that you have way more control than you think. So when you stop doing these obsessive, like overpowering actions, stop like trying to control something in such an obsessive manner, that's when things fall into place. Like when I think of my body is just the best explanation I can use, because it's such a physical and like you can just see the effect. It's such an easy example to use. When I came out of the second competition and I tried to control my body, I wanted it to go back to being as lean as it was at my competition, or like close to that, like right before my competition. And so I was putting in so much effort. I was forcing myself through these exercises, and you're gonna hit a breaking point. Even when you've convinced yourself that this is your new lifestyle and this is your new happy, there's gonna be a moment where that imbalance is going to hit, because you're gonna feel that that's not the case. Well, I felt it, at least. I felt that was not the case. And so I hit a breaking point. I hit a wall, and I got frustrated. And then I was like, why is my body not responding to what is happening right now? Why is it not doing what it did when I first did this? Like, I'm doing everything right. And that was a sign that I was totally out of balance, because my body was holding on to weight, which was reflecting how I was feeling on the inside, right? And on the inside, I was out of balance. And the moment I stopped trying to control it, and I actually took a step back, and I just focused on nourishing my body and moving my body when it was right for my body, immediately my body started to respond better, because I started listening to the internal voice that was trying to scream out at me and tell me, hey, there is something that is out of balance. You need to listen to the internal. You need to heal the internal. And I actually ended up having to do less and get better results instead of having to do more and get better results. And this applies in all areas of your life. The more you're in flow and you're not forcing something, the more it has a chance to come to you. And it all is about trusting that what is meant for you will come to you. And that doesn't mean that you don't take actions, because that's where like it gets a little confusing, right? When you're thinking of like like spiritual energetic laws, and we think like, oh, just sit and manifest and just pray that you're going to get what comes to you. To get what you want, to attract what you desire in your life, there are actions that need to be taken to make you an energetic match to what you desire. But part of those actions could be taking a step back from what you're doing, right? And being more in flow and leaning more into that and trusting that you've done everything that you could do to get the results that you desire. And that's where intuition is so freaking cool, because with intuition, you can get down to the precise details of what you need to do and how you need to listen to your body. So I already started doing this on my own before I started training my intuition. I already started feeling out my body, but it changed so much when I actually trained my intuition. And now I tap into my body every single day and I ask, hey, body, should we work out today or not? Or do you need a rest day? And you get more of a precise answer of what your body needs to get to where you want to be. And the same thing goes for business, right? And that is something that is like, whatever your highest value is, you're probably going to put most of your efforts in there. And you're probably going to lie to yourself in that area of life and convince yourself that what you're doing is the right thing. And it doesn't mean that it's the wrong thing, but it means take a step back and actually feel out if what you're doing is what you actually desire and is what actually makes you happy. So that is always the struggle. And that's why it is so important to differentiate between emotion and intuition, because your intuition will never lie, but your emotion will override your intuition and make you believe something else is true, right? That something else is true. So, and we're very, very good at that. We're very, very good at convincing ourselves of something. Like, I know I am. And so it gets harder to differentiate between what is the truth and what is not until you take a moment, you get still, and you actually listen to what you're feeling on the inside and what you actually want. Or you're going to reach a breaking point where it like you're forced to see what's actually going on. So with me, I hit that breaking point by gaining weight, even though I was doing everything. And there was a moment where I was like, okay, enough now. I'm over this. I need to figure out what's actually going on, because this isn't making me happy and this isn't getting me where I want to be. But we'd rather not get to that breaking point, right? We'd rather actually understand what is going on a deeper level. And so that is the beauty of intuition, when you can tap into that and actually differentiate by figuring out what intuitively is happening instead of what's happening emotionally. You can get a clearer answer of what is going on instead of like wondering, am I doing this because I actually want to do this? Am I doing this because this is actually moving the needle forward? Or am I doing this out of a fight or flight response, out of a response of fear that if I don't do it, that everything is going to fall apart? Because a lot of the time, that's where it's coming from. It's this fight or flight energy that is driving you forward. And in fight or flight, you're not going to get what you want. You're just going to push away further what you desire, because people can pick up on that energy. And also, it's not healthy for you. You are going to start seeing these reflections in your body that are showing you that you are in fight or flight. And that's why reflections are so like handy in these moments. So for example, in the last week, I have been working on diving deeper into reflections. And what does the universe do? It shows you more reflections to work with. So basically, we found a bump or a lump under my dog's skin, and I was a little worried about it. It turns out it's not so bad. That's also the beauty. I could tap in and see if I should be worried about it. I mean, obviously we took my doggy to the vet to make sure. And then later on, I was cooking the other day and I wanted to make some cookies that I, really enjoy making. I love baking, but I wasn't taking the time, first of all. So I boiled the butter. I was like rushing it. So I boiled the butter, and I had a thought, and I thought, oh, I should probably not pour it in that glass because that glass could break. Even though I had the thought, I ignored it. I poured the butter into the glass. The bottom of the glass broke, and the boiling hot butter fell all over my legs, and there was glass literally everywhere. So I have like burn marks on my leg now. And this is this is what reflections do. So reflections show you that you're out of balance, and things like this happen to show you that you're out of balance. So I dove into what was going on, and I'm a generally very happy, positive person, right? I am a happy, positive person. I don't feel a lot of anger a lot of the time. Like, you have to push me to a breaking point to get me to feel actually angry. But we are good at pushing down emotions or not registering what is fully going on. We are very good at disconnecting from what is truly happening. So I looked into the reflection, and both the reflection of my dog with a lump and my burn on my leg were showing me that I was emotionally imbalanced and that I was angry. I was angry about my financial area of life. And honestly, without reflections, without intuition, I wouldn't have gone so deep to figure out what was actually going on. And the interesting part is I probably would have figured it out later on, because the day after I had an emotional reaction to something that got that anger and that frustration out. And I was like, ooh, this is where it is. This is where it is, right? So what I'm trying to say by that is that you can push down the true belief of how you feel down super far, to the point that you don't even know that it's there. But at some point, it is going to reveal itself. You are going to recognize that you're out of balance. Before I trained my intuition, and while I was doing my bodybuilding competition, my body showed me. Like, I didn't need intuition, because my body was going to show me that I was out of balance. It was going to direct me in the right direction to get me to tune into my body and fully realize that this extreme way of living wasn't making me happy, even though I was convincing myself that it was making me happy. Right? I was telling everybody, this is my new way of life. You're going to have to deal with it. This is going to be me for the rest of my life. I'm going to be ripped for the rest of my life. I was convincing myself that this was the case, that I was happy, that this is what I wanted to do. And I was literally brainwashing myself into believing it. And because the body and the universe wasn't agreeing and wanted me to fully see what was going on a deeper level, that's when my body had to reflect back at me that there was an imbalance, to the point that I had to go and dive deeper and see what was actually going on. So if you're at this moment in time, if you think of your highest value right now, so what is it that you want most in life right now? Do you want the body? Do you want success in your business? Do you want more finances? Do you want a relationship? Do you want a baby? Do you want, think of anything, a new house? You want a new career? Think of whatever you want right now, and think of all the actions you are taking to get that thing that you want. And I want you to ask yourself, are you doing this because you truly want to do this? Or are you doing it as a form of trying to control the situation and fear and lack of confidence, because you think that if you don't take the action step X, Y, and Z, you are not going to get where you want to be, right? It's this form of trying to control and mold what is going to happen, instead of trusting that every step that you're taking is the right step. And trusting that if you don't over micromanage and focus on every single little thing, it will still turn out how it's meant to turn out. Trusting that if you put the energy out there and you took all the steps that you needed to take, that you will attract that money into your life. It's the same thing where my mom, she works as a midwife. She worked as a midwife. Like in the Netherlands, we have this where you just have a baby, and they in the Netherlands, you don't have to stay in hospital. You get a nurse that comes to your house every day and helps you with the baby and with household stuff and things like that. And my mom did that. And she had multiple situations where parents wanted to try and have a baby. And I've heard this multiple times. And they would go through the IVF round and they would be struggling, not getting the baby. And then eventually, after having their first baby, the second baby comes like this. Why? Because there's no more pressure anymore. The first time round, you're putting all this pressure on it, and you're thinking that you're doing everything that you need to do to get where you want to be, and you're convincing yourself that this is just, the best way to do it. And that is not me saying anything negative about IVF, but I'm just saying the energetics behind it, not trusting that you can just conceive a baby on your own, because that's what happens. You start losing trust in being able to create a life, create something, create anything. And then the moment you have your first baby, the second baby comes around so much easier because that pressure has been taken off. You don't fear or worry that it's not going to happen anymore. And you've proven to yourself that you could create a baby. So therefore, you have convinced yourself that you are able to conceive a baby, and before you didn't have that. So that is a perfect example of where that happens. The more you put pressure on things, the harder you push them away. It is a universal law. And that is why the thing is, what I'm trying to say with this overall podcast is that it's not only that. When you think that you are not putting pressure on yourself and you're convincing yourself that you're not putting pressure on yourself, which I know that we all have that. If your body is showing signs of headaches, if you're spilling things, if you're carrying extra weight, if you are, struggling in other areas, there is an imbalance that is showing you that there could still be pressure that you're putting yourself on. And it is time to start listening to how you're actually feeling. If you sit with yourself and you do a breathing exercise and you slow down your breath, and then you ask yourself, because when the breath is slow, the emotions go down, because when you breathe slow, your brain and your body knows that you're not in danger. I want you, if you don't have the ability to intuitively tap in to that, and if you want to start creating that ability, we have awesome free content in the free membership to start unlocking your gifts. So check out the links below or reach out. But if you don't, or you haven't trained that yet, I want you to take a couple of breaths, slow down the breath, relax, try to get your emotions fully under control. And I want you to ask yourself, with whatever action you're taking right now, am I doing this out of a balanced place? Am I doing this because I truly want to do it, or am I doing it out of a fight or flight response? And if you immediately feel you're doing it out of a fight or flight response, or emotions do come up, then you probably need to reevaluate why you're doing what you're doing. If you feel like if you don't do the actions that you're taking, so for example, if you're obsessively training, obsessively dieting, or if you're obsessively posting on social media thinking you're going to get business, or anything that you feel like you're doing obsessively or over the top and you're convincing yourself that it's not, and if you ask yourself, if you stop doing that, would that relieve of stress, or would that add more stress and fear that you won't get where you want to be? Then you're doing it out of an obsessive compulsive energy. And I know that because when I struggled with OCD, the thought of stopping the action that I was doing would freak me the fuck out. Like, I would panic. I would think, no, but I can't do that. And if you have that response, I can't do that, then you need to reevaluate what the reason is that you're doing it. Is it because you feel like you don't have value if you don't do it? Is it because you fear you will lose something if you don't do it? And if the answer is yes to those two things, then you probably feel like you don't have confidence in an area of life. Somewhere you're lacking confidence and trust that things are going to be the exact way you want them to be. So in that moment, it is time to start building on the trust that you have within you. Start showing yourself in how many areas of life you have trusted yourself and things have worked out. Start showing yourself that you have always made the right decisions, and that by taking the foot off the gas, you're actually going to probably get more of what you want instead of less of what you want. And then I promise you, your life will be so much happier, because when you're working out of a stressed, out of balance, fight or flight energy, that actually pushes away the thing that you desire most. It doesn't draw it in, it pushes it away. So you are going to benefit so much more from coming from a balanced place and working on trusting in yourself, in your power, and knowing that everything that you're doing is the exact right thing for you right now. When you're forcing it, when you're acting out of fight or flight, it is not doing anybody any good, and you are going to hit a wall. I know, because I've been there, and we don't want that. So I want you to check yourself. Well, you don't have to, but I would advise that you check yourself. Look into where you feel this could be happening in your life, and start checking every action and asking yourself, is this something that I'm doing because I truly think it's going to move the needle forward? Or is it something that I'm doing? And maybe you truly believe that it's going to move the needle forward, but I would ask myself, am I doing this out of a balanced place, or am I doing this out of a fight or flight response that if I don't do it, I'm going to lose something? I'm an expert on this because I've experienced it in so many areas, and I still do. Like, it's so easy to be so incredibly hard on yourself and think that by exuding a lot of control over this one thing, over this one action, you are going to somehow create everything that you desire, right? But I want you to look back at moments where you've done that and see how it hasn't actually given you what you wanted. And even if it did give you what you wanted, were you happy because of it? So if I think back to the moment that I was super ripped and on stage, the rest of my life was so out of balance that was I living life? No, I was not even connected to my body. I was just ripped and going through the motions like a machine. Just like a machine. And I didn't even realize that I wasn't myself because I had convinced myself that this was the new me, when it wasn't even the true me, because I hadn't connected with my core self. But also, I needed to experience those things so that I could be here today and show you and explain to you and relate with you how this works and how this feels. Because otherwise I wouldn't have known what that would have felt like, and the capabilities that I had, and also how out of balance I was back then. We are so good at lying to ourselves. We are so good at convincing ourselves that we enjoy something when we don't, that we're happy when we're not, that we are in balance when we're not, that we're taking actions out of balance when we're not. And the only way that you are going to identify if that's the case or not is by settling down your emotions and intuitively checking in and asking, is this something that I truly want? Is this actually making me happy? Or am I convincing myself that that's the case? So after listening to this podcast, I ask you, because there's a reason you found this podcast and you're listening to this, I ask you to think about what you want in life and think of the actions you're taking, and ask yourself if the actions you're taking are from a balanced place or out of a fight or flight energy. And I'd love to hear how this starts shifting things for you. And if you want to start unlocking those intuitive gifts and understanding the body better so that you can also listen to what the universe is trying to tell you and to what your body is trying to tell you, then go to the free membership. We have a bunch of amazing videos in there explaining all of this so that you can get started. You can get more in touch with your body and your intuition to start really seeing what is going on inside and connecting you with your real path and getting you closer to everything that you desire in your life and stepping into that true goddess power that you have. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and I hope to see you in the next episode.